Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, but we're going to head a little bit north this time to Dalarna county once again, and we're going to visit another brewery who I have never had anything from before, but going by their artwork and things like that and all the Nordic kind of mythological imagery that's going on, I think these guys could be pretty interesting. So for this review then we are going to go to Söderbärke, which is near Borlänge in Dalarna, as I mentioned, and we're going to have a taste of my first beer from Walhöll Brygghus. So this one is the Odens Imperium, and it's an Imperial Stout coming in at 9% ABV. If memory serves me correctly, I got this beer either at the start of October or November. I can't remember which one, but it definitely came through one of the local and Småsekt assortiments. So always cool, as I say, to introduce you guys to new beers on the channel and new breweries that I've not had anything from. You can really get some real gems from some of the very, very small Swedish breweries, actually, as I learned with Odens Brewery recently from Kalmar County. So yeah, curious to see how this one turns out. I probably bought this beer just because it had Odin on it, and you know, Odin the Allfather is pretty awesome, so I probably bought it because of that, but hopefully it turns out to be a good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. So curious to see how it turns out. Let's see how we go. So as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Walhöll Brygghus. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Walhöll Brygghus then, on to my brewery notes. So as I mentioned earlier, Walhöll Brygghus rather, are based in Söderbärke, which is close to Borlänge in Dalarna. You're talking about out to the kind of west, the kind of northwest of Stockholm, if you like. But the brewery was founded back in 2015 by Karin Tuvel along with her husband Gunnar. So Karin has a background as a teacher and also as a chef, but she also runs a gym along with Gunnar as well. But she was also a member of a local dart club, and it was through there that her interest in beer really began to kind of manifest, and she began homebrewing a bit later on in 2012 before beginning to properly plant a brewery in 2014. So she's really interested in Swedish like history and, you know, Nordic mythology and things like this, and all of the beers that you'll find from Walhöll Brygghus are named after different people and different events and things like that in Nordic mythology. So the name of this brewery is actually taken from an old soft drink factory that was called Walhall, using the Swedish spelling Walhall, but this name was actually taken by another company, so she couldn't use it. But then she saw the Icelandic spelling of it, Walhöll, W-A-L-L, or W-A-L-H-U-L-L, the O with the two dots on it, the umlaut, and she decided that she would use that as the name of her brewery. So these guys started off with a small 200 litre brew kit, and by 2016 they had their beers in Systembolaget, and they produced around 12,000 litres of beer per year. That has been scaled up considerably over the last few years. I think these guys are maybe producing around like 40 or 50,000 litres of beer per year at the moment, and they've got a whole different variety of things as well. I noticed when I was researching that they also have a smoked beer, and if you've watched the channel before, you'll know that my whole love of beer began with the likes of Schlenkerla and things like that. So I'll need to check out their smoked beer at some point in the near future. But one of the interesting things about this company as well, when I was reading the articles on beernews.se, which is where I get most of the information for these videos, at least for the Swedish breweries, this brewery was at the centre of a kind of legal dispute over the use of these Nordic names with Wacken Brewery from Germany. Of course, Wacken, these guys are kind of associated with the big metal festival that's down there, because apparently this brewery tried to trademark the use of Nordic names when it came to beer. And in the article that I read, Karin was saying that there's a Ragnarök brewery in Ecuador, of all places. They had support from a Danish brewery as well, who were using a lot of names. I can think of, Hornbrygge, they've got the Odens Tipple and things like that as well. So, you know, this Wacken, for a German brewery to try and trademark the use of Nordic mythological names in beer. It's just a little bit kind of ridiculous, to be honest. But the lawsuit seemed to, the whole kind of legal argument seemed to go on for about 18 months, 2 years, something like that, and eventually at the end Walhöll kind of came out victorious. They were using Danish lawyers and stuff like that, and they won the argument. So, you know, good on them, because to me that's a kind of stupid thing, actually trademarking trademarking the use of Nordic names for beers and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. But as of December 2019, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 35 different types of beer, and there's a whole host of different things in there. There's IPAs, pale ales, imperial stouts, there was a smoked beer as well, and a few other things. So there's quite a lot of different stuff in there, and I guess that's kind of cool that a brewery that is kind of so small and things like that, and quite young, are willing to try all these different styles. But in fairness, they are getting quite close to being 5 years old, so it's a little bit of a surprise that I haven't heard of this brewery before. But then again, if you consider the very small scale, it kind of makes sense that it's only recently their beers have become available nationwide in Systembolaget. So yeah, curious to see how this one turns out. But that's all you really need to know about Walhöll Brygghus just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages as well, and that will give you information on all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. There you can see Odin chilling there with these ravens behind him. It's really cool. I have to commend the artwork on this. I think I'm going to keep this bottle for my display. When I move apartments, I'm going to have a bottle display behind me, and this one will definitely be part of it. But yeah, a 9% Imperial Stout. This one there, you can see the Viking longboat as the symbol of the brewery there, which I have to again compliment them on. It says Odin betyder det rasande och asarnas ledare. So it means, Odin means like angriness, rage, and is the leader of the Ashes. I'm not sure exactly what that would mean, but he is the mäktigast, han är den mäktigaste guden och den främste utvärdaren av sedekonst trolldom. So basically, like, he is the most powerful, yeah, the most powerful god, and the most like, he has the best kind of moral fibre. He is like he lives and demonstrates his moral fibre, if you like. Han offrade sitt ena öga för att vinna kunskap ur Mimer's brunn. So he offered his own eye to win knowledge from Mimer's brunn. I'm not sure exactly what that would be, like well or something. Yeah, but yeah, kind of interesting, that one. It's just telling you a little bit about Odin. Obviously, Odin he wore the eye patch because he only had one eye. He gave up his eye for knowledge, I'm sure, or battle. I can't remember exactly what the story is with that. But yeah, it's telling you a little bit about Odin on the side there. You know, assuming because of Karen's interest in Nordic mythology and stuff, I'm sure she's got this pretty damn right. But yeah, I have to admit, I do like the sort of rune style, I don't know if you can call it runic style writing on this one as well. But yeah, really nicely presented, because that is one thing a lot of people don't know about the Vikings, is that they were illiterate. You know, they had runes and stuff to symbolise things, but they were, from what I gather, they were actually, they didn't really write very much and things like that. It wasn't that common for them. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. A 330 millilitre bottle, and a 9% Imperial Stout. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on to the tasting. One thing I would say that would be pretty cool is if that was just a plain black bottle cap on this one. It would be cool if they did have their own bottle caps and things with the Viking longboat on them. I think that would be pretty cool. So carbonation, as you can see, I think the carbonation will be quite active in this one. At 9%, it's not the lowest Imperial Stout that you're going to come across in terms of alcohol, but it is a little bit lower than some other ones you're going to get. There's a little bit of sediment left in the bottle, but I'm sure it will be okay. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, and as you would expect from an Imperial Stout, this guy has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. If I shine the light through that, there's not even like a little bit of a kind of Coca-Cola coloured edge to this one. This one is definitely black as night. You're not going to find a beer that's darker than this, and it's quite hazy as well. There's not even transparency to this. There's a solid half finger of a frothy, I would say medium kind of beige head on this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it looks pretty nice, I have to say. and it's kind of what you would expect from an Imperial Stout. You know, nothing overly surprising about the appearance of this beer. So yeah, interesting. But yeah, let's have a look at the aroma then and see how we get on. I'm really curious to see whether this is going to be like a sweet stout, or whether it will be more of a kind of roasty toasty Imperial, like Russian Imperial or something like that. Oh right, okay. First thing I'm going to say about this is the aroma on this is really not the most pronounced. It's actually a very kind of subdued or subtle aroma that you're getting here. First impression is, when you shake it up, it actually comes across as almost a little bit peaty. You know, being Scottish, of course, peat is very distinctive. There's something about this this beer that comes across as just a little bit peaty. It has that sort of earthy, grassy kind of vibe to it. A little bit smoky almost as well. Some peats are more smoky than others, right enough, but there is just something about this beer that comes across as quite peaty. It's like wet grass that you've kind of had in your compost heap for a little bit. And the aroma of this beer is quite unusual actually. But you can get beers sometimes like this that don't smell anything like they taste. I mean, I remember I had one of those ice cream Imperial Stouts from Omnipollo one time, and it smelt like it smelt like the food recycle bin that you have. It stank. It was horrible. And this, this one isn't anywhere near that, but it's quite different. But you will get beers sometimes that smell nothing like they taste, and I've got a feeling that this one might be one of those. So yeah, you've got a bit of woodiness to this. You've got that sort of almost peaty, earthy, wet, grassy kind of thing to this, which is really unusual. Some woody aromas, as I said. You can get a little bit of a sort of dusty chocolate out of this one. Quite a dark chocolate as well, I would say. No real brown sugars or anything like that. But this is definitely one of the more kind of grassy stouts or something that I've come across. That's really unusual actually. For me, it's almost got a little bit of like a kind of spirity or whiskey kind of thing about it. It does come across as like a little bit of a peaty whiskey kind of thing. I don't think it's barrel aged or anything like that. It doesn't say anything about it being barrel aged. It just says unpasteurised and unfiltered, of course. But yeah, there is something that's a little bit almost Scottish about this, which is kind of cool. It does have a peaty, yeah. Don't know if there is a bit of sweetness in there, a little bit of a milk chocolatey sweetness or something. But I mean, overall, it's an interesting aroma. It's very, very subtle. There's a few things going on in this, but you've not got the big kind of roasty, toasty notes or the sweetness or things that you'd expect. There's a bit of earthiness. There is a little bit of a hoppy, like an earthy, slightly grassy note out of this one. Some red fruity kind of vibes to this beer as well. Yeah, it's got a little bit of like a kind of almost like a dark cherry or something like that. There is a little bit of that in here, but really, I'll be straight up with this one. The aroma in this beer, you're really kind of searching to try and find things. This is a very kind of subdued aroma compared to some other Imperial Stouts that you're going to come across, but I'm guessing a lot of the stuff will come out in the flavour actually, so we'll need to see how we get on with that. So maybe with this one, don't spend too much time on the aroma, but let me know if your experiences were a bit different with that actually. You do get beers that do this sometimes, but yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we go on. This one is the Odens Imperium, a 9% Imperial Stout from Walhöll Brygghus in Söderbärke, Dalarna county here in Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål. Oh yeah. It's pretty interesting actually. It's quite, it is actually like quite an ashy stout. I mean, it was saying on here, Odin, it was like saying like Odin rose from the ashes or something, and this is a quite ashy Imperial Stout. I wonder if there's probably English Fugel hops in here or something like that, because you do get that kind of ashy quality to this beer. I mean, it comes across actually as a bit like an old school English Imperial Stout. It comes across a little bit like that. Maybe that's the reason why the alcohol's a bit lower as well, because obviously since the Americans have taken this style, they've kind of amped up, and a lot of the kind of Scandinavian and Nordic breweries have really pushed it up. That's one of the styles that's really popular in Scandinavia, is the Imperial Stout. And this one to me, I mean, it does have elements of the more American side of things, but it does have a distinct kind of English quality to it as well, definitely from the hops. This beer is a little bit sort of smoky and ashy. I think I've maybe made the mistake with the aroma of this of thinking there is an element of a peatiness to this. I think there's a little bit of Scottish peated malt or something like this. Either that or it's a Swedish version of the peated malt. There is something definitely peaty about this beer, and it really reminds me of the Loch Ness brewery back home had this. They did like a peated malt IPA, which was really strange, but it worked, and it reminds me, this beer reminds me of that a little bit, the way the malts come out, but obviously this one doesn't have the fruitiness and the bitterness and things that you would have had from that beer. So yeah, let's try and break this one down a bit. This is a really unusual Imperial Stout, and I have to say, out of all the stouts and things that I've reviewed for you in Sweden, I can't remember ever coming across something like this. And you know, there is about 450, 500 Swedish beer reviews on the channel now, something like that. But yeah, this is interesting. So let's break this down. So the middle of your palate, you can feel there is a sort of woody underlying to this beer, but you've also got that kind of smooth sort of peaty quality to the beer. The further you go into the aftertaste, you can really feel the centre of your palate just drying out and becoming that little bit more sort of ashy or something like that. It's really interesting how that, pardon me, comes together in this beer. I like that about this one. So, you know, kudos to Walhöll Brygghus for this. They've pulled off quite an interesting malt base here. The more and more you go into that aftertaste, the more sort of woody, nutty it gets. I mean, this is the sort of beer that you would think that they've aged this a little bit in like a sort of more smoky whiskey cask, like Ardbeg or Lafroig or something like that. You would wonder if they've aged this in a cask like that, because the mouthfeel of this is a little bit thinner, and that always happens when you barrel age beers. The mouthfeel does kind of thin out a little bit, and the flavour in this is really infused as well. That's the interesting thing. I'm surprised they don't give you more of a description of what kind of type of beer it is, because there wasn't anything like that on the website either. But yeah, it's definitely one of the more light-bodied Imperial Stouts that you're going to come across. But I like it. I would say though, maybe the reason I probably like this is because it's quite, in some ways to me, it strikes me as being quite Scottish almost. But I can see, be aware with this one, this beer is best suited to people who like a sort of, almost like a kind of peaty whiskey, if you like. It definitely has a little bit of that to it. But yeah, as I say, woody note blankets the middle of your tongue. There is that sort of peaty, infused kind of quality there that sits in the middle of the palate too, and it really dries out a little bit. There is a wee bit of a kind of, if you go to the very centre of your palate, there is a little bit of a kind of chocolatey thing there, and it's a sort of, you know, 60% cocoa, if you like. It's not overly dark or anything like that, but to me this is a really woody, peaty, ashy almost Imperial Stout. It's really interesting actually. It's not the most complex Imperial Stout that you're going to come across, but I do like how those flavours kind of fit together actually. There is almost a sort of smoky element to this one, so yeah. But the smokiness, as I've spoken about with Rauch beers and Scotch ales and stuff like this before, two of my favourite styles of beer, the German Rauch malts are definitely more meaty than the Scottish ones. The Scottish smoked malts are more peaty and they give you that sort of earthy, grassy kind of thing. And this one definitely fits into that category. This is another beer that really is making me think a little bit because it is very unusual. This is why I like visiting the small Swedish breweries, because they'll throw up things like this that really kind of test your palate and stuff. So, you know, kudos to Walhöll Brygghus for this. So yeah, as I say, yeah, woody base, a little bit of that peaty, earthy thing. There's not too much going on in the middle of the palate. I think what I've described already is pretty suited for this one, like a woody base, some peaty notes towards the back of the palate. It becomes a little bit more earthy as you move out toward, sort of ashy rather, as you move out towards the sides, and then there's a little bit of a chocolatey sweetness in the middle of the palate there, but the chocolatey sweetness is not too prominent in fairness. So, back corners of the palate, you do have quite a strong earthiness to this one. There's definitely some English hops in here. I would guess that it perhaps is a little bit fugal, along with maybe something else. But as you move further forward along the sides of the palate, it gradually gets more herbal. Again, the herbal kind of quality is a sign of the English hops there. The German ones are a little bit more kind of smooth and floral, if you like. But as you reach the front corners of the palate, you do get a little bit of a floral quality there. Then round the very front curve of the palate, it's just a little bit lighter and more grassy. And then behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get that little oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. And this one, the fruity side's a little bit different as well, actually. So yeah, when you take the beer in, it has got a little bit of a juicy kind of figgy quality to it. And then you get some of the dry sort of peaty, ashy kind of qualities. Like if you go to the bit behind that oily bubble there, it does get a bit dry and sort of almost like a well-fired Christmas cake or something like that. There is a little bit of that going on in this beer. But then the further you go into the aftertaste, the beer, it continues to dry out, but you start to get little notes of like black currants, blackberries, maybe a little bit of an almost pruny kind of quality out of this one. There is a little bit of red fruit to this beer, but really this is quite a dry stout, this one, and it's the peaty and the ashy qualities that really kind of linger here into the aftertaste. This is really unusual. I mean, I would never expect a Swedish brewery to produce a stout like this, to be honest with you. I don't know how common this is, or if it's maybe, you know, is it maybe an old style or something that's been brewed in Sweden? But this one, it strikes me like a kind of old school, kind of English Russian Imperial Stout or something like that. Like it's quite an ashy kind of thing, this. And you don't see too many Imperial Stouts these days. I mean, Brewdog did one or two, I remember, back in the days when they were still just starting up. I mean, was it called the Old World? That Russian Imperial Stout, and that used fugals and things. So there's an element of that with this, which is kind of interesting. So bear that in mind. This is a really old school, very unusual Imperial Stout. So kudos to Walhöll Brygghus for trying something like this. I want to try their original smoked beer that they have. I forget the name of that, but that's definitely one to try. And I'll need to try an IPA or something. As I always say, when you try a brewery, you want something from the light end of the spectrum and something from the dark end of the spectrum. But yeah. So yeah, a little bit sharper on the fruity side when it comes in. Then it smooths out, dries out a little bit, and then you get the more kind of blackberry-ish, figgy, almost kind of datey or pruny notes out of this beer. So yeah, fruity side is interesting. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say this beer, it's quite light-bodied for a stout actually. That's one of the things about it. It's at the top end of light-bodied, bottom end of mid-bodied. Carbonation is very smooth. The mouthfeel is quite wet, and I mean when they're from Dalarna County, you know, it's quite a mountainous sort of area. You're going to get good quality water up there. I've said this about you know, Swedish and Norwegian beers. The further you go, the cleaner the beers feel, and it does come across with that sort of clean, quite minerally type mouthfeel. The water can affect the flavour of the beers a bit, but not negatively, of course. It's just a trait you get. Icelandic beers especially are known for that. So it does have a kind of cleanliness to the mouthfeel. In terms of the hoppy bitterness and things like that, I think we're talking maybe... It's actually quite smooth, and it's more like a kind of... It's almost a bit more kind of spicy, this beer, rather than bitter. So I'd guess that the IBUs in this are actually quite low, you know, maybe like 20 or 25 or something like that. I think the IBU count in this beer is low, but the dryness that it has is not a bitter dryness. It's more kind of smoky and ashy and stuff like that. So the beer is dry, but it's not bitter, if that makes sense. There's a slight degree of sweetness to this one. It's quite smooth in its malt base, little degree of sweetness, as I said, about 20-ish IBUs, something like that, and you've also got a little bit of a juicy fruitiness that's a bit sharp when it comes in too. But overall, a really interesting beer, this one, and definitely cool to review something like this that does make you think a little bit. After 1900 reviews, you do want to think a little bit more about your beer. So yeah, I definitely need to check out more from this brewery, because if they're producing stuff like this, which is really unusual, then I think there's some other interesting beers to be had from them as well. But yeah, let's just leave it at that for this. A really curious Imperial Stout, this one. A bit lower in its alcohol, right enough. but it does work out pretty nicely actually. Quite light-bodied as well is the other thing I would say about it. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know your favourite beers from Walhöll Brygghus as well. Do give me some other Dalarna county brewery recommendations as well. I mean, we know Opie Gourds. I've had one or two other beers from up in Dalarna County as well, but do give me some other brewery recommendations, because I know there's quite a few very small breweries up there that I might not have heard of, so some recommendations there would be appreciated. But yeah, you know, it's always great to hear from you guys, as I say, and I hope you've enjoyed another beer review. Let me know your own thoughts on this one, and I will catch you guys very soon. This one is the Odens Imperium, quite a smoky and dry and peaty, ashy Imperial Stout from Walhöll Brygghus in Söderbärke in Dalarna County. Interesting review to do for you, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed yet another kind of Swedish review. This one will be the last actually in Sweden for a couple of weeks, because I'm going to Japan to see my little one being born and stuff like that. So you will see some Japanese beer reviews from tomorrow, and then I'll put up some kind of older Swedish reviews that I've filmed and not published yet after maybe about 2 weeks of filming in Japan. So yeah, this is the last Swedish review you'll see for about 2 weeks, but you know, I'll catch you guys very, very soon with new beers in January and stuff like that. Have a very nice Christmas and things, and you'll see some special reviews that I'm filming in Japan as well very soon. So until the next time, Slanger just now, and I'll catch you guys soon. Make sure you check out Walhöll Brygghus in Söderbärke in Dalarna County. Slanger, skål, cheers.